been a long night.
In this video, I will be reviewing the Black Rooster Audio VLA-3A plugin. It is an emulation of the LA-3A compressor slash limiter slash leveling amplifier, whatever you want to call it. The LA-3A is basically the solid state version of the LA-2A. Both compressors are easy to use due to only having two knobs. There's one threshold knob labeled as peak reduction, and there's a makeup gain knob. There's also a switch to choose the limiter or compressor modes. The LA-2A, in comparison to the 3A, has a rounder sound, thanks in large part to its tube and transformer circuitry. Black Rooster Audio also has an LA-2A emulation plugin available as well, which I may or may not review in a future video. The 3A, on the other hand, has a more transparent sound and it works great on more sources than the 2A. The way I like to look at it is it's an easier to use 1176 compressor because, again, it only has two knobs and the release is program dependent. Both the LA-2A and the LA-3A have their uses depending on the sound that you're looking to achieve. Some common places that you'll find the 3A include electric guitar, bass guitar, drum overheads, drum room mics, acoustic guitar, and vocals. The 3A has a more quote-unquote high-fidelity sound than the 2A. Alright, so let's talk about the actual plugin here. So when I went to install it, I was not 100% impressed. You first have to register an account with them. Okay, that's not a problem because this plugin does not require an iLock or any other hardware dongle, so that's understandable. But they make you download all of their plugins at the same time. I'd like to see them separated so that this doesn't turn into a huge file, but we'll see in the future how it goes. You do get to choose which plugins are installed though, which includes their free Canary plugin. And you also get to pick between 32-bit or 64-bit plugins, or both. I didn't understand what legacy VST support meant. There was no explanation on the installer, but I chose it anyway and it seemed to work. Now, registering the demo was a whole other ordeal. First, I tried online registration directly from the plugin and I received error messages. From what I've read on different message boards, they fixed this problem, but I'm reporting it because that was my experience. And I can't really test it again. I think I actually have to change my password for it to work properly now. But anyway, your mileage may vary on that one. So what I did is the offline registration by manually typing in my device ID into Notepad and then copying and pasting that into the website form. So, it was a little old school on the registration, but not that big of a deal. If it weren't for the online error, it wouldn't have been so bad. So if they fixed that, then cool. By the way, Black Rooster Audio isn't some new company. Well, the company's new, but the developers aren't. They've worked on the following plugins, to my understanding: BX Opto, Alicia Envelope, the UAD Shadow Hills Mastering Compressor, Vertigo VSC2, Vertigo VSM3, and the Acme Opticom XLA3. Let's try this baby out. I know you guys have already heard the samples at the beginning of the video, but let's actually listen to it a little bit more in depth. So first of all, a clean electric guitar. We'll put the plug-in on first, all right? Now off. Yeah, it's horrible level matching. But anyway, what I'm hearing is, and seeing, is that the level is a lot more even, but it doesn't take away from the original tone. In fact, it makes it a little bit more present, but not a lot. It's just very, very transparent. And that was one characteristic that I kept hearing over and over, is that it didn't sound like I had a compressor on. You see when that big amount of gain reduction hit, but it really wasn't that big of a difference? That's pretty damn cool. All right, next up is a distorted electric guitar. I'll start with the plugin off this time. By the way, I did run this through the VU meter plugin because I'm using other people's tracks and they weren't recorded properly. Not all of them, at least. So I wanted to make sure that the level hitting this compressor around negative 18 decibels RMS was good. Now, this is not going to be that much of a difference, but, you know, I'm playing it anyway. To me, it just evens the levels out a tiny bit more without it sounding too congested. It actually kind of, again, boosts the presence a little bit. If you can't hear that, put headphones on or turn your speakers up a little bit louder than normal, because that's where I'm hearing it. When I was trying this plugin out before, my speakers weren't up loud enough, and I had them up loud for this video, and now I'm hearing that characteristic LA-3A sound, which is that slight mid-range boost that keeps everything transparent even though you're compressing it. I mean, you're seeing how much gain reduction I'm getting. That's a good amount of gain reduction. You know, if you're watching the meter over here on the track, it's evening out them levels quite well, which is the whole point of this hardware / plugin. All right, so on this one, let's see, I cut out the low end because the bass guitar was just a little bit too much for my subwoofer. So again, improperly recorded levels. I don't know where these engineers are coming from, where they learn how to record. But anyway, that's a subject for a whole other video. Maybe I'll put a link on the screen right now to tell you what I'm talking about. But anyway, here's bass guitar. This is like the LA-3A's. The biggest use you'll see with a bass guitar, or the LA-3A, is vocals and bass guitar and electric guitar. Those are the three main areas that you'll see this compressor used in real studios. So this was interesting to listen to. Again, the sound doesn't have that choked compressor sound that pretty much all of us are familiar with. It just sounds good. It evens out the tracks, as you guys may be familiar with if you record bass guitar. Bass guitar is one of the most dynamic instruments out there, so the levels are all over the place, and this did a really good job at evening them out. I'm going to look for a little bit more dynamic area, but it looks like this one's a little bit more dynamic. And guys, remember, this is all about what these will sound like in an actual mix. I tend to compress tracks harder and they don't sound as good individually, but when you put everything in a mix, that's where it cuts through better because the volume levels are more even, and I can tell just by listening to this how much better these are going to cut. And again, it's just so easy to use this because you have a threshold and a makeup gain, and you can flip back and forth between compression and limiting. I don't really use that knob that much, but 3 controls maximum, right? Oh, by the way, I should mention this. I forgot to earlier. The one problem that I had with this plugin is when I initially went to twist the knobs up and down like I normally do, like I just did, it was not functioning like I thought it should. It was actually making me go around the plugin, like tracing the knob as if I was twisting it for real. And then also, instead of just clicking this like other plugins where you just click the button, see it's not doing anything, you actually have to click and drag it up and down, which I guess that's not too much of a pain in the butt, but it's just something that I noticed that I would like to see changed in a patch. Now, I did change how my knobs changed, and that's in this settings menu. So it was originally on host setting, and I flipped it to linear, and linear is the usual, just drag it all the way up, drag it all the way down, or left and right as well. And that's the typical behavior. Now, the other thing I noticed is I can't do like a control drag or a shift drag where it's, okay, shift drag does work. I don't know why it wasn't working before. Maybe because I had it on linear mode. But yeah, now I can do a more precise setting. And I guess the only other thing I can think of right now for Black Rooster audio is I like to have a number pop up so I know exactly how precise I'm moving my knob here. But again, everything is about what it sounds like, so it's not that big of a deal, just something for the future if they, when they release other plugins that have a little bit more advanced controls, then they could do it there. But again, I was very impressed by the way this sounded, and I'm not familiar with the LA-3A sound. I haven't used the real one, but I like what I'm hearing. So this is the actual bass amp as opposed to the direct input, and you're going to listen to it right now. Again, look at all that gain reduction I'm doing, and it still sounds good. On to the next track, drum room mics. Now, I'm an 1176 fan when it comes to smashing the drum room mics, but I wanted to hear what this would sound like with parallel compression. That's why my mix knob over here in Reaper is set where it is. That's really what I want to hear, was the difference between this solo dry versus having it on in a parallel mix. So here we go. And with the compressor on. The way I would describe it is it's a more subtle, hard compression for drum room mics. So if you don't want it slamming, if you just want it a little bit more beefy, then this will be a good option for your drum room mics. It wouldn't be my first go-to, but maybe like for jazz music or something where you really don't want to, again, you don't want it pounding, you just want it a little bit beefier is the best way I could describe it. All right, now we have an acoustic guitar. Again, a very dynamic instrument. We could see that. I'm going to bring the waveform levels up so you can see it better. Okay, so this section is pretty darn dynamic. So let's listen to this and watch the gain reduction. Now, I would not use this if this were just a like singer-songwriter, vocals and acoustic guitar type of thing. You know, I wouldn't maybe push the gain reduction so much, but for an acoustic guitar in a busy mix, this would definitely work out quite well. Again, very easy to use. It sounds good. What's not to like? All right, next up is male vocals. So let's see. I think this is actually the same song. Let me listen to it.
It's been a long night.
Okay, yeah. So this is the vocal for this song. So I'll play these two together. Let me make sure this is on. Nope, it was not on. All right, so now it's back on, and we'll listen to. I'll take the reverb off for now, so you can just hear that with the compressor.
It's been a long night. Now my voice is growing thin. You all look so stoned. Yeah, the next group wears an eager grin. Please. It's been a long night. Now my voice.
Here, I'm gonna level match these a little bit better. A lot a bit better.
It's been a long night. Now my voice. It's been a long. It's been a long. It's been a long. It's been a long night. Now my voice is growing thin.
Okay, so that was pretty dynamic right there. So I'll start off with that part.
It's been a long night. Now my voice is growing thin. You all look so stoned. Yeah, the next group wears an eager grin. Please listen one last time. The song's about to begin.
Okay, again, a good amount of gain reduction, but it still sounds natural. It doesn't sound crushed. It just sounds like he sang this with a lot more even volume. Okay, so I'm going to combine the acoustic guitar with the vocal now. I'm definitely going to have to bring the vocal back up more than likely, but bear with me as I mix in real time. Oh, nope, this was not the same song. Never mind. I thought it was. Same performer, but not same song. So I'm going to go on to female vocals right now. Again, I did not record this. As you can see, my levels are a lot more conservative where they should be, and these are, yeah, again, whatever. Not my gig. So let's listen to right here's about a good starting spot because we got a louder vocal here and then a quieter vocal there. All right, so I'll lead the plugin on.
Inch by inch, come on, connect the dots. Yeah, keep me in your line of sight. Close, closer till you're kissable. Inch by inch.
Okay, just so I know that you guys are looking over here at the meter. Look at this meter right here where my arrow is. All right, right at -12, and watch the levels of these two. See how there's a big difference in the waveform size because this is like louder. So just watch the meter with the plug-in on.
Inch by inch, come on, connect the dots. Yeah, keep me in your line of sight.
A big amount of gain reduction, but it still sounds good. I'll do it without the plug-in on.
Inch by inch, come on, connect the dots. Yeah, keep me in your line of sight.
Yeah, so that's a big difference in dynamic range. That, I think the lowest note was around -18, and then it went up to around -10, maybe even -9. And when you had the compressor on, everything stays around -12. And to my ear, it also sounds pretty darn even as well. So again, great compression. I mean, that's the goal. When I do compression, I'm either, I'm going for an even volume, or in some cases, it's for more artistic reasons where I want something to pump more or, like bang more. Like that's where I would use a different compressor. But for evening out levels, transparently, this plugin is definitely delivering. Okay, last thing is my favorite, and I say that sarcastically because I despise compressing piano. But if this can do a good job with piano, then it's a damn good plugin. So here we go. All right, now I'm going to go to the lower volume track over here. Okay, so this is definitely going to need some automation during mixing. You can only push something so far, but I think it did a pretty damn good job. Again, I am imagining a busy mix, not something that's soloed, because in that case, I'm not going to have to use as much compression, which I'll give you guys kind of a mini lesson on compression right now. The busier your mix, the more likely you're going to need a lot of compression, and you can get away with more compression in a busier mix. Now, the only exception to that rule is that typically, even with a sparse mix with less instruments, I will compress vocals and bass guitar pretty hard just so that things are more evened out. I may still need to do automation, but bass guitar can take a lot of compression and still sound good, and vocals pretty much need it to happen, especially if you have a singer that's all over the place with their dynamics. But anyway, my impression on this plugin is that it's a winner. I think that the LA-3A compressor is kind of a sleeper piece of hardware because it's not that talked about, because the LA-2A is just, I don't know, there's something about the LA-2A that people just are brought to, and it's like the allure. It's kind of like the Fairchild. Like, people talk about the Fairchild 670, but is it really that good of a compressor? Or is it just because they only made a few of them and they cost like $35,000, as opposed to the LA-2A costs $3,000. A real LA-3A you can get it for like $1,500. So people think it's a better compressor because it costs more money, when in reality the LA-3A was the revised version of the LA-2A. To be honest with you, if I had a choice, I would get the LA-3A. I think it works on a larger variety of sources. It's a bigger workhorse compressor, and for that reason, I am going to recommend this plugin. I think it's going to, I will end up buying this plugin down the road because it's so easy to use. It gets good results. It's relatively affordable, and I can't really say much else other than that. I mean, besides the installation process, this plugin would get a 5-star rating from me. So if they fix the installation issues and separate the plugins so that you don't have to download every single plugin, then this will have a 5-star rating. So I'm holding off the 5-star rating until that. But if Black Rooster Audio fixes those issues, this plugin gets 5 stars. I couldn't be happier with the way it sounded. I don't know how close it sounds to the hardware, but the ease of use and the quality from this plugin is excellent. Try it out for yourself. You get a 14-day demo. There's no restrictions. There's no audio blast. There's no volume reductions. This is a fully functioning demo, and I want to know what you guys have to think after trying it out for yourself. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification button next to the subscribe button, and sign up to the newsletter if you want to make sure you get every single Real Home Recording video that I release. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.